Sai Ram. I offer my humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Master and Lord, who is here now. He's in my heart, and he's in the heart of each one of you. So I offer my pranams to all of you. Jai Sai Ram. A few weeks ago, I gave a talk to the UK organization. Then they sent me the link of that talk, and I heard my speech, and I realized that my English pronunciation is a disaster. So I will pray that I will be able to speak with the language of the heart, and that you will listen to me with your hearts as well. So we'll have a good communication. Today, I would like to speak about many things, a little about Swami's divine message as I see it, and then I will share with you some of the experiences that Swami gave me. Usually I have 45 experiences that I share. Today we will not have time enough to share all of them, but I will try my best. We are in the middle of this pandemic COVID crisis. We know when it started, we don't know when it's going to end, but we know that everything is God's will. And it gives us, all spiritual aspirants, an opportunity to intensify our sadhana. In this COVID pandemic, they ask us to wash our hands more often and more intensely. So we as spiritual aspirants should wash our hearts and mind also more intensely and more often. This is how we have to spend the time when we are in quarantine at our houses, at our homes. Instead of watching TV series or reading the newspapers, we should try to see Swami in our hearts. I have read Swami's books many times. I have listened to his divine discourses, and I have felt that he taught us a very concrete, practical way of living. And I would like to summarize some practical points that I think are very, very important for each one of us. We are very fortunate because we are alive. We are very fortunate because we are alive when an avatar came to earth. We are incredibly fortunate because we are awakened to the spiritual path. But we are more fortunate because we have the Purna Avatar as our divine master. So we have to take full advantage of this opportunity, understand his message, and put it into practice in our lives. So we'll give you 12 points that I think are very important for all of us, and then I will go to the experiences. I don't want to bore you with these points, but I think they are very, very important. You know, in life, we know that there is a karmic law. And the karmic law says that when you commit a mistake unknowingly, even if you don't know that it's a mistake, you have to pay the consequences. But once you know that something is wrong and you do it anyway, the reaction will be much stronger. So I'm going to tell you some things that you should not do and some things that you should do. And please, if you feel that you are not ready, close your ears. Because once you know what you should do, and if you don't do it, it's not going to be good. I know that all of you are ready to put this into practice. Some of you are already doing that. But I urge each one of you to apply the following. The first step for me, according to Swami's teachings, the practical spirituality that Swami taught us, it's going to be very difficult, but I am sure that you will apply this from this second onwards. The first step is don't be angry again. Never again. To be angry is a sin against God, because all what happens to us is because it has been sent to God for our own good, for our spiritual progress. So please take a commitment not to become angry again, ever again, no matter what happens to us. The second point is this: don't be afraid anymore. Swami is with us in our hearts. You know, Swami says, I am above you, below you, besides you, around you, and in your hearts. If Swami is with us, why are we going to be afraid? So this is the second point that the spiritual aspirant, the Sai devotee, should erase from their lives. Don't be afraid anymore. The third point, Jean just said that Swami smiled to me. Swami smiled to me because I smiled to him. So from now on, if you are not going to be angry anymore, if you are not going to be afraid anymore, smile. Try to spend your day smiling. Then you will become a beacon of light to the world. The fourth point, acceptance. It's very similar to the first one. Acceptance is a state of being. We have to accept whatever happens to us, but accept it gladly. So we have to understand that our lives are directed by Swami. So we have to accept everything that happens to us. The next point, we have to live with confidence and trust. You know, there is an analogy. Imagine that you are on the edge of a cliff and you are falling, and suddenly you pray to God and you are able to cling to a rock, and then you pray more intense for his help. And he throws your rope. What must we do? We have to hold the rope very tightly. So we have to have the confidence that Swami will send the rope and the faith that he will save us. We have to live with faith and confidence in Swami. Then another important step is, once we know that we have to change something, we should do it right away. When we had the first meeting of the Prasanthi Council, Swami invited us to his house, and the 5 members of the Prasanthi Councils were with him. He was very gracious. He gave us coffee, biscuits, and then he spoke to us at length about what we should do, what is the purpose of the Sai Organization. In one moment, he said something very intensely. He said, go to every corner of the world and spread my message. Then after the meeting, we met in one place, and we tried to summarize all what Swami has told us. So we wrote it down in a piece of paper, and then we wrote, we will try. And Professor G. Venkataraman said, don't put that word, don't write try. We should never say that we'll try, we will do. So this is how we have to live. Once we realize that something is wrong, change it forever. Procrastination is another sin. ABC, be away from the bad company, be close to the good company, be careful with what you see, what you hear, what you think, and have a disciplined life. Then another important point is, and it's very important for me, is stop criticizing. From this moment onwards, we should stop all criticism, not only in word, but also in our mind and in our hearts. We should not criticize any human being. Doesn't matter what he does or she does. Then there are 2 qualities that are very important for the spiritual aspirant. One is called Shama, forbearance, and the other is Saranagati. Forbearance is a very important quality. We have to forbear whatever happens to us. It's very close to the other points I have mentioned. And Saranagati really comes from the war. When an army is defeated, they surrender to the conqueror. When they surrender, they not only give up their weapons, but the most important point is that they have to adopt the culture of the conqueror. So in spiritual aspects, Saranagati means to adopt the qualities of Swami, to adopt his point of view, to put on his glasses, and try to live thinking if what you are going to do, what you are going to say, what you are feeling is worthy of him. If you can do it in his presence. I think that the last point that I want to mention today, because I want to give more time to my experiences, is remember that you are going to die. This coronavirus pandemic has aroused in the people all over the world the fear of death. But we as spiritual aspirants should not be afraid of dying, but we should remember that we are going to die, because this is a very important tool for all of us. So we will not waste our time. And I will link this with one story that Martin asked me to share. As Jean said, I was a psychologist. Not I don't work as a psychologist, but due to one of Swami's Leelas, but I was working for many years as a psychologist. And one day, a lady came to my consultory with her daughter. Her daughter was 12 years old. And she told me that she thought that her daughter was psychotic. So she asked me to check if she was all right or not. She had a very strange behavior. So I asked her mother to leave, and I interviewed this girl, 12 years old. And the girl was a normal girl, but at the same time, she was able to see you and tell all your health, how your health is, organ by organ. He could also tell you when you are going to die. And if you went to another room, for example, in that place, I went to another room and I changed my watch, the time of my watch, and she would say from where she was sitting, the time I was putting in my watch. I could do it 3, 4, 5, 10 times, and all the time she would tell me, now you put this time, now you put the other time. She could see the spiritual beings as we see each other. If you give her a paper, a piece of paper, and put it on the other side, she would put her hand on top of it, and she will tell you what was written on it. She remembered very clearly who she was in her past life. She knew how she died. She knew what was going to happen in this life. So once I realized after 2 or 3 meetings with her that she was not psychotic at all, but she is a very evolved human being, I stopped treating her as a patient. I met with her family. I explained that to them. And I was very curious, so I asked permission to them to meet with them in their house. And so I was going to be able to explain what I knew from the theoretical point of view about spirituality. And at the same time, I was going to enjoy the clairvoyance and all the spiritual these powers that this girl has. So I started to go to their house every Sunday to share the tea with them. I used to carry a lot of, how do you call it? Kind of biscuits. And I spent 2 or 3 hours with their family. I was going to their house. I went to their house for 3 years. I became like a member of the family. One day, the girl told us, Jesus appeared to me and told me that we should meet next Thursday at 8 p.m. Of course, next Thursday, I went to their house. A couple of minutes before 8, I felt like cold, like my skin was vibrating. And the girl said, Jesus is here. At that moment, the girl became another person. She performed some kind of mass. She blessed the food. And then she wrote in a piece of paper one sentence. And I took this piece of paper with me. It was in a strange language. I took it to a translator of all languages. He couldn't understand what was written on it. And when I was leaving, he said, wait, come back. And he took again the piece of paper and put it against a mirror. And it was written in the piece of paper in, I don't know if it was Hebrew or Aramaic. It was written, you are not doing enough. That was a message from Jesus to all the people that were in that meeting. But it's also a message for all of you. We are not doing enough. When are we going to do enough? When we wake up from the slumber of ages, when we realize who we are, when we realize that we are God. Till that moment, we are not doing enough. Sadhana means spiritual effort. That means that we should not confine our spiritual disciplines to singing bhajans or doing service once a week or teaching human values to the children or reading spiritual books. Spirituality is a way of being, a way of living. It's to eradicate all bad qualities from our heart, from our mind. Spirituality is to be good and then even better, more good and more good and more good, till one day we are like Swami. Till that moment, we are not doing enough. So please think about what you are doing and try to add a little more. One day, let me start by the beginning. Why I'm talking to you now. I was in another spiritual organization. I was vice president of a Raja Yoga organization, and I heard about Swami. There was no Sai centers in Argentina. So I met with a group of people that were in the same organization that I was. But one lady went to India, met with Swami, and she started to share with us. So we met in one house or the other. And I decided one day to travel to India to meet with the spiritual master of the Raja Yoga organization. And then if I could, I would go a couple of days to see Swami. Before leaving to India, I had a very special dream. In that dream, I was in a room with 8, 9 people. And then Swami came into the room. And I did like this. And I was surprised why I was doing like this. I was surprised at myself because I was not a Sai devotee yet. But I thought, because in the other organization, we believed in another avatar. An avatar that was sometimes in a physical form and sometimes in a subtle form. So I thought, if you are God, I will have to feel something. So Swami came, all this happened in the dream. Swami came walking by our side. And when he was by my side, I had the most incredible experience. It's very difficult for me to put it into words. Because suddenly a wave of energy started from my feet going up to my head. But as this wave of energy was rising, going up, each cell of my body was exploding. You know when you put water to boil and the water boils and the bubbles explode? This happened to each cell of my body, but once the cell exploded, I felt bliss in that part of my body. I felt bliss in my knee. In every centimeter, millimeter of my body, each cell exploded and I felt bliss there. You know, this was out of time, because imagine how long it takes for each cell of your body to explode and you feel the bliss there. And there was one wave, then the second wave, then the third wave of energy. But when the third wave reached my knee, I lost equilibrium and fell on the floor. And when I fell on the floor, I was dead. My body was completely dead. You know, in the night when you have a numb arm and you cannot move it? Well, imagine that 10 times. I was fully aware, fully conscious inside a dead body. I felt that I was inside dead flesh. You know, I couldn't move even an eyelid, nothing. And I was realizing that I was pure consciousness within a dead body. And that time, Swami ended walking through the people and was going to the door to leave us, to leave. And when he went to the door, he looked back at me, he saw me on the floor and came back to me and rose me. I hope my English is all right. And gave me 3 kisses in my heart. And I woke up. That's why I'm here now, because Swami kissed me 3 times in my heart. And I'm sure that all of you who are listening and watching this online talk, you are now watching this because you have also been kissed by Swami in your hearts. Maybe you don't remember it, but each one of you have received the divine touch. So be happy, be very, very happy. He will always protect us. He will always guide us. He will always teach us. He will always fill us with love. Be happy. Another time when, let me go in the chronological time. Then I went to India. After that dream, I went to see the spiritual master of the other organization. I was supposed to be with him for 1 whole month. But after 3 days, I told him, sorry, I cannot stay any longer. I felt in my heart that I had to go and see Swami, Sai Baba. He said, I understand, go. So I left him. And I was able to find out that Swami was on a tour in the south of India. And he was going to go to Madras. So I went to Madras to wait for him. And no one knew when Swami was going to come. Since the moment I told that spiritual master that I needed to see Swami, from that moment onwards, spiritual, divine miracles started to happen in my life, one after the other. I have no time, even if I speak to you for 3 long days, I will not be able to tell you everything. But anyway, I went to Madras to wait for Swami. And the day Swami was supposed to come, I was seated in the Sundaram ashram with 50,000 people. And I was given, there were very few foreigners, and I was given a first row. And before Swami's car came, my heart started to beat very intensely. I said, what is happening to me? And at that moment, Swami's car entered. From that day on, I knew every day when Swami was going to come out for darshan, because my heart started to beat very intensely before he came out. And I always say that my heart recognized him before my mind. That is why it's so wise to the sentence that says that we have to follow our heart. The first darshan, he came and he gave darshan and he stood in front of me. And I look at him and I asked him, Swami, I want to see you. I meant what I wanted to say, Swami, I want an interview. But from my mouth came out the words, Swami, I want to see you. And he looked at me, he didn't open his mouth, but telepathically, I heard his voice over my head saying, but you are seeing me now. And I was like this, and he smiled and left. That was the first telepathic experience I had with Swami. Then 30 days went on, he went to Whitefield and then to Puttaparthi, I followed him. And after 30 days, one day, I was in my room, and I received in that trip so much attention from Swami. Every day he gave me either vibhuti or signed a photograph or took a letter. Every day. I thought it was normal. I didn't realize how fortunate I was. So one day I was in my room and I wrote in a piece of paper my resignation to the position I had as vice president of the Raja Yoga Organization. And I wrote that I found the Purna Avatar and I had to surrender to him. The next morning I went for darshan, and Swami, instead of coming out and doing the usual walk, first to the ladies and then to the gents, directly from the veranda came straight to me, stood in front of me, looked at me, and he said, yes, this afternoon I will see you. Last evening I say yes to him. In the afternoon he said, in the morning next darshan he said yes to me. When darshan was over, I thought I thought about going directly to the interview room and wait there for the afternoon darshan. But the seva stopped me and he told me, it's not like that. You have to come back in the afternoon. And if Swami wants, he will call you. I thought that seva didn't like my face and I couldn't say anything, so I left. In the afternoon, I got a third or fourth row that at that time was to be very far away. And I was very sad, thinking Swami will not remember. Even if he remembers, he will not find me. My thought was my mind was with this kind of thoughts. Swami came out for darshan, and from the veranda, he didn't look for me. He just rose his head and looked at me, and from the veranda he shouted, you! At that time there was no music, so I stood up and ran to him and said, yes, yes, Swami. I was afraid because he said that so strong. So I said, yes, yes, Swami. And Swami said the most beautiful word, go, interview. I asked him if the group of Argentinians could join me. He said yes. And then he gave darshan. When he came, he invited us to the room, to the interview room, and he spoke to all of us. And suddenly he approached me and he said all what I was thinking from the morning, that he was not going to remember, that he was not going to find me, everything what I had thought. And then he approached even more and whispered into my ear something that I will never forget. He said, Swami will never disappoint his devotees. And brothers and sisters, this is also for each one of you. Swami will never disappoint us. It's important that we don't disappoint him. You know, sometimes we used to say, his life is his message. Now we say, our life is his message. It's not like that. We should say, his message is our life. Because we don't know what kind of life we are living, but we should take his message, the guiding point of our lives. Then we will never disappoint Swami. Then I went back to Argentina after 3 months. I stood there, and after 3 months, I went back to Argentina. I was going back to Argentina in the month of March. And while leaving the ashram, I thought, I want to come back in September. I don't know why I thought that, but it came to my mind the idea of coming back in September. I had no money to go back in September to India. As a psychologist, I was doing like $100 or $200 per month. Imagine to live and to save money to buy a ticket to India was completely impossible. And at the same time, I was also starting the new business that Swami gave me as a gift. That's a very, very incredible miracle, but I will not share this today. And suddenly, I was so confident that, you know, to trust Swami, to have confidence. So I was so confident that I say goodbye to the people I met. I told them, don't miss me, in September I will be back. So I went back to Argentina. In the middle of June, a person came to the office we have with one partner, and he asked for the rights of the one company that I represented, Marvel Comics, to do a live show for kids using the characters of Marvel Comics, Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk. So I negotiated the deal with him, and he asked for the original costumes. He wanted to do the live show in Ecuador. So as I couldn't give him the costumes and perhaps he will never return them, I will lose more money than I was going to get as a commission for that deal. I arranged as part of the deal that I had to go with them. They had to pay for my round trip ticket and my stay in Ecuador. And he agreed. So I went with him, and I went with him to Ecuador, and I was with him for 1 month. He gave me a ticket valid for 1 month. The day 29, the tour ended. The next day, my ticket was expiring. I was my flight back to Argentina. I was in the city of Guayaquil. But suddenly I felt that no one knew about Swami in Ecuador, and I had to spread his message. And then I felt that urge in my heart. So I went to the airline office and I told them, listen, my flight is tomorrow. Can I go in the next flight that is 4 days later? The employee said, no way, your ticket is expiring tomorrow. You have to take that flight. But I insisted, and I spent like half an hour arguing with that lady. And finally I said, please, I want to stay. Tell me how. And she replied, open your ticket for 1 year and stay how long as you want. So I asked her, how much is it? She said, $100. Of course, I paid her $100. And when I left the office, I realized that I had no idea how to spread Swami's message. There was no site centers. No one knew about Swami. I didn't know anyone in Guayaquil. Suddenly I remembered that one brother from the other Raja Yoga organization in Argentina moved to Ecuador. And I found out that he was living in Quito, the capital of Ecuador. I got his phone number, so I called him. He was in the spiritual path. I explained to him what I wanted to do. He heard about Swami, and he told me, listen, come to Quito and I will help you. I don't know how, but at least we will be two trying. Your chances will expand 100%. So I bought a ticket and went to Quito. On Monday, I had the idea about speaking about Swami. On Tuesday was my flight to Buenos Aires. On Friday, I was giving a talk at the Hatha Yoga Organization run by a Catholic priest. They have a big auditorium full with people, and I spoke more than 1 hour about Swami. When I finished my speech, the priest came and said, "What you said was so interesting. I have a magazine. If you don't mind, why don't you write an article about Sai Baba? And if you have a photograph, I will put it on the cover of the magazine. I distribute it freely for all over Ecuador." Imagine, I wanted to speak about Swami. Not only I spoke in a room, in an auditorium full of people, but then an article was going to be published in a magazine that was distributed all over Ecuador. This was Friday. My flight to Argentina was next Tuesday. On Saturday, my friend invited me to a concert, a classical music concert. I went. Quito has a beautiful weather, like springtime. But in the night, when the concert finished, it was almost midnight, we came out and it was really very cold. And he found a person that was leaving also the concert. And that person, he was preparing an advertising campaign for him. So they started to speak. And while they were talking, I was freezing, like, I was like this. And that person looked at me and he said to my friend, your friend will get a cold. Let's stop. And why don't you come tomorrow to my house for lunch and we'll continue our conversation tomorrow. When he left, I told my friend I will not go to a business lunch meeting. He said two things, my friend. He said, first, you don't have nothing else to do. And the second, if you don't come, will be very impolite because he invited you. So not to embarrass my friend, I went. And they started, that person was a very rich man from Ecuador, former ambassador of Ecuador to Israel, a very refined person, not interested in spirituality at all. He was interested in the good things of life. But suddenly, after half an hour, he asked me why I was there. And I started to speak about Swami. And I spoke for 10 minutes without interruption about Swami. And suddenly he stopped me. And he said, do you mind to go to India with me? If you don't mind, I will buy 2 tickets and we'll go to India. I said, I don't mind at all. So he gave me a paper with an address and he said, come tomorrow, Monday, to this place at 10 a.m. This is a travel agency. I will buy the tickets and we'll go to India. My flight to Argentina was on Tuesday. Anyway, on Monday morning, I was in the hotel and suddenly I thought it was a joke. But suddenly I said, what if not? So I took a taxi and I went to the place. It was a travel agency. He bought 2 tickets and we went to India. And on September the 2nd, I was in Whitefield with that person. My ticket free from Argentina to Ecuador, free from Ecuador to India. Why that person did that? He was not interested in spirituality at all, but he discovered that he had a cancer in his palate. They made a surgery, a biopsy in the United States, in one of the most important oncology centers in Texas, but it was a malignant tumor and was no way to cure him. So he knew that he had a limited time to live. When he heard me speaking about the healing powers of Swami, he said, I have nothing to lose. That's why he bought the tickets. He was a very heavy person. We were staying in a house. We rented a room in a house like almost a mile away from the ashram. Every day we went to the ashram in bicycles. We didn't have showers. We had to take the water from the well. This person was complaining all day long. They say we have to start the day with God, spend the day with God, end the day with God. He started the day complaining, spend the day complaining, end the day complaining. But one day, he couldn't be seated more than 5 minutes. He was uncomfortable being seated on the floor. But one day, I don't know if it was a Thursday or a Sunday when they sing bhajans all day long. After morning bhajans, everybody left. Only the people that wanted to sing, to remain singing, they stayed. And he stood. He remained there. He told me, I will stay. So I left. When I came back in the afternoon for the afternoon darshan, I sit by his side, and I sat by his side, and he was crying like a baby, you know, sobbing and crying and crying. I told him, Teodoro, what is happening? Calm down. And he told me, Swami didn't come out yet, but he said, Swami was just here in front of me. He asked me to open my mouth. He put his hand inside my mouth, took something, and he said, your cancer is canceled. Well, no one saw Swami, but he felt his presence. A couple of days later, he went to Puttaparthi. We followed him, and then a couple of days later, we went back to Ecuador. He went to the clinic. The cancer was not there. He went to the United States. The cancer was not there. And he put on paper all what he had seen in the ashram and the experiences he had. And he published 10,000 copies of small magazines with the photograph he has taken, and distributed those 10,000 copies for free all over Ecuador. I wanted to be in the ashram in September, and I wanted to spread Swami's avatarhood in Ecuador. Swami did everything. One day, one Argentinian lady, one young lady, and young adult could be today, in the morning said, oh, I would like to eat something that Swami materialized for me. In the afternoon, Swami called the Argentinian group for an interview. And suddenly, in the middle of the interview, he asked that girl to stand up. He didn't wave his hand. He put his hand, he asked her to stretch her hand like this. He put his hand over her, like 20 centimeters over her hand, and in her palm appeared a ball of polenta. Polenta is like a sweet corn, hot and oily. And Swami started to give a piece to each one of the people, then another piece, and then another piece. And that girl told me later that suddenly she thought nothing will be left for me. And when he looked at her palm, the ball of polenta was as when Swami made it, intact, complete. They asked me to share a story about Brazil. When the Sai Organization started to grow in Brazil, we had like 5 Sathya Sai schools and many Sai centers all over Brazil. There is a spiritual movement in Brazil called Spiritism. It's a mixture of Catholic Church and spirituality. They believe in the ancestors, in the spirits. They invoke the spirits, and they have a huge following, second to the Catholic Church. So one day, this movement was so concerned about the growth of the Sai movement that they decided to send the number 2 person, the hierarchy of that movement, to India. That person had spiritual powers, clairvoyance. They sent him to the ashram to prove that Swami was a fraud. So he went to the ashram, and when he came back, in his first lecture, 5,000 people were there. He's very famous in Brazil, Professor Divaldo is his name. You can Google him. And he said that he went to India, he went to the ashram, and he said that the whole ashram is surrounded by angels. And all the negativity of the people stays outside. The negativity cannot go inside the ashram. And that when Swami comes out, there is a spiritual, like a pink rain of energy falling on everybody. So he spoke about what he saw, and as he's a real, sincere spiritual aspirant, he told the truth about the dimension of the divine incarnation that Swami is. One time, I want to share this story because it relates to a very important lesson that Swami gave me. On my 4th trip to India, by by that time, excuse for my English is fading away. By that time, I used to go to not only every nook and corner of Argentina, but also to the neighboring countries to speak about Swami. I went to Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, everywhere. And well, I was in the ashram on my fourth trip. I was walking to my room in the afternoon, in the evening after dinner, and suddenly a thought came to my mind. I thought, are you the Purna Avatar? Are you Brahman? Are you Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, all in one? And this doubt came to my mind. So I went to my room and I felt very bad because I thought that I couldn't speak anymore about him being the Purna Avatar if I was not 100% sure. So I felt very bad. And I thought, who put that doubt in my mind? I said, you, Swami. Who will solve this doubt? You, Swami. I spoke about this story in front of Swami. And it came to my mind what kind of proof I could ask from him. And suddenly an idea came to my mind that a watch. If he makes a watch for me, I will believe that he's God. I said, Swami, if you make a watch for me, I will believe that you are Parabrahman. I thought about that because in the other interviews I had from the other trips, I have never seen Swami materialize a watch. If I asked him for vibhuti, he could make vibhuti as usual. And also I asked him for a watch because I have a very nice watch that I bought in the United States in the store called Tourneau. Very nice watch, but it was a hand wind. So it was always fast or slow, never on time. But as I like it so much, I didn't change it. So I thought if Swami gives me a watch, I will use Swami's watch. So next morning I went for darshan. Swami called the Argentinian group for interview. And in the interview, he looked at me, a watch, and gave it to me. But when his hand was in front of my face, his hand continued its way and gave it to a student who was sitting behind me. He had an incredible sense of humor, and he proved me that I have a strong heart because I didn't die at that moment. So 20 days more, I stood in the ashram, and the last day I was going to leave after the morning darshan. Swami came by my side, and instead of asking me when I was going to leave, he said, at what time are you leaving? And I said, after darshan, Swami. He said, first go, interview. So I went to the interview room. There he was. He came in, he spoke to all of us. Suddenly he looked at me and he asked me, what time do you have? And he moved the sleeve of my shirt. And I said, no, Swami. He stopped me and he said, I know. Sorry, I forgot something very special. Excuse me. In that night, the night I asked him for that proof, I went to sleep and I put that watch that I had near my mattress. And I went to sleep and I had a dream with Swami. And in the dream, Swami came and told me all what happened to me with that watch, that I wanted to change it, I didn't change it. And suddenly he told me, your watch, your problem, I will solve your problem, your watch disappeared. And I was so strong that in the middle of the night, I woke, and the first thing I did was to stretch my hand to touch the watch. I was not there. I stood up, turned on the lights, the watch was not in the room. I got scared because I thought I challenged Swami some hours ago. Now he's punishing me. Instead of giving me a watch, taking my watch away. Then the story continues. The morning he called me for an interview, made this deal of the watch. And the last day he called me and he asked me what time did I have. And I said, no, I don't. He told me, he said, I know your watch disappeared. And he said the exact same words as in the dream, with the same face, the same expression. You know, I was surprised that it proved me that the dream was real. And then he said, how is your mad monkey mind? And when he said those words, I realized You know, a monkey will never be quiet, but imagine a mad monkey. My mind was in the heights of faith, the abyss of doubt. And I replied to Swami, it's very bad, Swami. And he said, it's not so bad. He waved his hand, a watch appeared. And this time he put it on my wrist. And he told me all what the watch was going to mean for me. He said many things about the watch. And then he asked me to cover it because he said, don't show it because the other will be jealous. So I was covering my watch. And then he put his hand like this and he said, I will give a special power to your watch. Whenever you will have a bad thought, your watch will stop. And he continued speaking. And after a while, I looked at my watch and I realized it was stopped. And while he was speaking, I screamed, Swami, the watch stopped. And he was very amazed at my scream, how I was screaming. And he said, I know, because you thought this, and that. And he told me all what I had thought. What happened? Some years later, 9 years later, I went to India. And in an interview, Swami, well, I went to India every year, but 9 years later in an interview, Swami told me suddenly, I will remove you, I will remove you, I will remove you. Very strongly. I didn't dare to ask him why. I was so scared. When I went back to Argentina, within 5 days, I had 3 major removals, in 2 of which I could have died. It was incredible. Each one is an incredible experience. I will not share them now. But in the first one of them, a very dangerous gang of thieves robbed me, and they stole Swami's watch and robbed the house where I was staying at that time. I think they killed another person in another robbery, but Swami gave full protection, but they took Swami's watch. So in my next trip to India, I told Swami about what happened. He said, I know. He didn't let me to continue. So I said, Swami, can you give me back the watch? And he said to me, first, do your duty, then I will give it to you. And since that moment, it came to my mind, what is my duty? I will give you the answer, but I will give you the answer finishing this story. When, as I didn't know how I was going to fulfill my duty in his eyes, I decided to buy another watch because I needed a watch. And as I always wanted a Rolex, in one of my trips to the United States, I bought a Rolex. A couple of years went on, and 1 year after I returned from India, I went to one client I had in an important neighborhood of Buenos Aires. And when I left his office, I was walking towards the parking where I left my car, 5 p.m. daytime. And before reaching the parking, someone got hold of my arm from behind. And with the other hand, took my watch, took it like that, and ran away. He was a teenager, 13, 14 years old. So when I realized what happened, I started to chase him. But another one was waiting for him on a motorcycle. He jumped on the motorcycle and they left. And I couldn't chase a motorcycle. So I stood in the middle of the street thinking what karma I have with watches. First they stole the watch that Swami gave me, and now they stole the Rolex. It had no sense to go to a police station, so I went to the parking, took my car, I went to my house. I live in the outside Buenos Aires. It was on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Next day, Thursday, before going to my office, to my work, I went to my meditation room and I did my meditation. And when I finished my meditation, I thought about what happened the last day with the watch. And I thought, Swami, you are omnipotent. You can give it back to me. But then I realized how silly I was. I was asking him for the watch because it was a Rolex. And I realized it and I said, forgive me, Swami, forgive me for asking you this. And when I said that, I said, Om, Shanti, 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 He. When I pronounced the last Shanti, He, the lady that was working in my house screamed, Sir, your watch, your watch. exactly after I asked him for the watch and I finished the meditation, her boyfriend was living in the house with her. He a metal tin that I used to use it to water the plants. And when he kicked it, he heard some noise, looked inside, and my watch was there. Imagine what Swami did. He used that thing to put my watch, to water my faith. It was the same Rolex that was stolen from me the day before in Buenos Aires. I had to put one pin, and when I put it back on my wrist, I felt the same vibration I felt with Swami's watch. But all the story was to tell you what was my duty, what is my duty. I thought about asking Swami many times. Whenever I had an interview, that question never came to my mouth. And you ask Swami whatever he wants, not what you think, what you want. But then I realized what is my duty and what is our duty. We are standing on two legs, so our duty is twofold. Our first duty is to realize our true self. That is why we are born, to realize who we are. Only for that purpose. And the second part of our duty is to help as many people as possible to advance in their spiritual awakening. So we don't have one duty, we have two. And we have to be sure that we work very intensely. Swami always says that we should work with sincerity, with intensity, and with purity. So we should work with these three qualities, and then we will reach the goal. Swami always, the scripture says, awake, 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 and don't stop till you reach the goal. So we have already started, but we must continue with more intensity till we reach our goal. Another experience, my nose. Sorry, perhaps some of you have already heard it. I bought a ticket to go to India. 3 days before leaving to India, I had an accident. My nose, this bone was broken in 2 pieces. I was taken to a clinic, they made X-rays, and they found that I had a double fracture. And they told me that I didn't need surgery because the bone was aligned. So they gave me painkillers, and also they asked me to put some cotton inside my nose in the night. So while I was sleeping, I would not move and take it out of place, the bone. You cannot imagine the pain that I felt. I had no dark here. Sometimes it becomes dark. But I couldn't move my face like this. I couldn't touch my nose like this. And 3 days later was my trip to India. So I thought, what I'm going to do? And I said, better to suffer pain there than here. So I took the flight. But it seems that my karma was not over, because on the flight to India, in the airplanes, they put this air condition very, very high. I got a cold. Imagine to blow your nose with a fractured nose. I saw stars over my head. I had so much pain that I cried. I thought who I was in my past life. Perhaps I was a Nazi and now paying this karma, because I said, why am I suffering so much? Well, I reached the ashram. Swami came out, the first darshan. Swami came out, looked at me. I didn't say to anyone what happened to me. Swami looked at me and invited me for an interview. So I always try to sit as close to Swami as possible. So I sat very close to his chair. So I didn't tell anybody anything about my nose, not even to Swami. Swami spoke, and suddenly I saw him looking at me with the corner of the eye and smiled. But then he continued speaking, and suddenly he did like this and stretched his hand and took my nose. So fast he did it, I didn't have time to go back to say anything. He just grabbed my nose and started to do this. Before I couldn't touch my nose or move my head. And he started to shake my head with such intensity, And he was doing this for 15 or 20 seconds. Then he released me and continued to speak to everybody as if nothing happened. when my head, when he released me, I was still doing like this. And when I was able to keep quiet, I realized that my nose was completely healed and my cold was completely gone. So if you ever broke your nose, now we cannot go physically to the divine presence, but he's always there to help us. Put some vibhuti. I think we are reaching the time, but I want to share so many more stories. Out of the 25 I have chosen, I was not able to complete even half. I will choose one more. That, and then I don't know if you have any questions, but the story is this because it taught me a very special lessons. You know, Swami taught us how we should pray to God. You know how? Swami says that we should pray to God with such an intensity till one of two things happens. Either we get tired and we stop asking, or he gets tired of listening and he concedes us what we're asking. This is the method. So whenever you want to pray to God, do it with intensity. What happened to me? I was on a trip to 7 Latin American countries to attend Sai meetings, public meetings, and also to select the office bearers of the organization in different countries, the coordinating committees or the central councils. So the trip was all planned. I had my ticket for the 7 countries, and then I had my ticket to go to the United States for a business meeting. My first stop was in Bogota, Colombia. I took the plane from Argentina, American Airlines. They made a stopover in Miami. I reached Miami, I think 5 a.m. in the morning. The flight was going to leave from Miami to Bogota at 4 p.m. I decided to stay at the airport. So I went to the prayer room. I meditated there. Then I went to have breakfast. Then I went to one store. Then I sat in one place to read. Then I rested a little. I went to another store, ate a little more. You know, the Miami airport has many concourses. Imagine from 5 a.m. in the morning till 4 p.m. The time is very long when you have to wait like that. At 2 p.m., I decided to go to check in for my flight. When I reached I don't know in English how to say, well, the place where I have to check in, I had a bag with me, a handbag, and inside, at that time, I had my tickets in a plastic purse that the travel agencies used to give us. You know, at that time, there were not electronic tickets, only paper. I had my tickets there, and I put my passport, my money, my credit cards, all in that plastic thing. I put my hand in the bag to take it, to present my tickets and my passport, but the plastic purse was not there. Plastic fold, I don't know how to explain it in English. Anyway, it was not there. I couldn't believe it. I have not only did the immigration, but also went to have breakfast, different things, but it was not there. If you lose your tickets, perhaps the airline may send them back. But if you lose your passport, you have to ask the embassy to give you a temporary passport to go back to your country. You cannot continue your trip. The same day, I was supposed to speak at the public meeting in the University of Bogota. The auditorium was for 2,000 people. 2,000 people went to the meeting and was one of the main speakers. And I had no passport, no tickets, no nothing. Not only I was not going to be able to go to Bogota, to Colombia, but not going to be able to go to the 6 other countries where everything was arranged, where posters with my name were printed for the public meetings. And then if I return to Argentina, in Argentina to get a new passport would take a month, and to get an appointment to get the visa for United States will take 2 months. It was a complete disaster. I went to Lost and Found, nothing. I became crazy. I started to run to all the places I have been. I remember I have been. I was a crazy person running from one place to the other. And when I was exhausted, I said, I had to ask Swami what I'm going to do. If someone, I had $2,000 in that plastic folder. I said, if someone found it and didn't give it to Lost and Found, he might be in a plane saying, thank you, God, for this gift. So I thought I have to ask Swami. And I remember how Swami says that we have to ask with intensity. And I thought I could not sit on a chair in the middle of the airport asking Swami. So I thought, what is the most private place? A bathroom. I went to the first bathroom I found, went inside the bathroom, sat on the toilet, closed the door, and I started asking Swami, Swami, please, Swami, please, Swami, please. Not aloud, because I thought someone outside will say, a crazy man is inside, they will take me to a madhouse. But in my mind, I was, Swami, please, Swami, please, Swami, please, for 45 minutes. You know, imagine 45 minutes without stop, Swami, please. And there was a moment when I couldn't repeat once more. I was exhausted. If I always tell the same story, if someone came with a gun and said, repeat it one more, or I will shoot, I will say shoot. I had no more energy. So I just came out of the bathroom. I left the bathroom, closed the door. And when I was out of the bathroom, the whole bathroom, I rose my head, and in front of me, like 2 meters, 6 feet away from me, was a lady looking straight into my eyes. She rose her arm with my plastic folder in her hand, and she said, sir, is this yours? I don't know when I lost it. I don't know where I lost it. I ran all over the airport, but when I left the bathroom, she was there waiting for me. So I went to her and I took the folder and I said, yes, yes. And I just looked inside with my mad monkey mind, if everything was inside. Of course, everything was inside. When I rose my head, it took me 2 seconds. When I rose my head, the lady was vanished. There was no time. Not even Usain Bolt could run so fast for me in 2 seconds not to find her. She was vanished in the thin air. This is Swami. This is how Swami taught me how to ask him with intensity. So do it like that. Whenever you need something from him, ask him. And don't think that he has left. The most incredible experiences with Swami, I had them after he left his physical body. And I will share one more that was not my plan. You know, when Swami left his physical body, I was in Mexico in a Sai Youth conference, so I couldn't go to India. And that night I called the ashram and I was told, I don't know why I had the urge to call, and they told me just at that moment, it was morning in the ashram, that Swami has left his physical body. So I thought about going to India for Guru Purnima when they were going to open the Mahasamadhi. I had no idea how the Mahasamadhi was going to be. No one knew because it was covered with some wood. I thought that they were going to put like a statue, like in Shirdi, of Swami seated, his statue. This was my idea. So I went to India, but before leaving Argentina, I had a dream with Swami. And in that dream, I saw the Mahasamadhi as it is now, but instead of marble, it was all cement. And on top of the Mahasamadhi of Swami's tomb was Swami's body. But his body was all covered with cement. And I was standing near his body, and I was crying, feeling so much pain in my heart. And I touched his body. And when I touched his body rose, and with one arm, he got hold of me and took me to him like this. And his arm was very heavy because it was cement. And I felt the heavy cement arm of Swami do it like this. And he took my face near his mouth, and he whispered into my mouth, and he spoke to my mouth, to my ear. He spoke to my ear, sorry. And I felt the warmth of his breath in my ear. Very, very warm. And I woke up. And when I went to India, Dr. Goldstein told me that I was selected to speak on behalf of the overseas countries on the Mahasamadhi unveiling on Guru Purnima Day. And one thing I said was what I heard from Swami in that experience. Swami said, I have not gone anywhere. I am everywhere all the time. And this is like this. Swami is here because he was not the body. Most of the experiences, I would say 99.99% of the experiences I had, I didn't have them in India, in Prasanthi Nilayam. I had them in Argentina or any other Latin American country or any other part of the world where I traveled. So Jean is asking me for a couple more stories, so I will continue if you allow me. Martin asked me to share a story about a doctor in El Salvador. So Martin, this is to fulfill your request. One day in El Salvador, I traveled to El Salvador many times for public meetings and to select the office bearers. And one day I was there with a group of devotees. One was a very well-known doctor of El Salvador, very famous in El Salvador. And he said that he wanted to share with us some experience that he had. I said, of course. And he said that more than, 30 or 40 years ago, when he finished his career, he was doing his residency. I think in the United States, they call internship. I don't know the English word. And he was selected to go to a hospital in a very remote place, like in the middle of the jungle. So he went there with a jeep, but in the middle of the way, the jeep broke and he couldn't make it, repair it. So it was getting dark. So he decided to leave the jeep and start walking before the night gets him there in the middle of the jungle. So he started to walk and it got completely dark. He couldn't see 2 meters to 4 feet from his place for where he was standing. And suddenly he heard a lot of noises and there were like drunk people screaming. And when they approached him, he saw native people completely drunk, holding machetes and screaming. And he was completely scared. He thought they're going to kill me because they were drunk and very violent. And they were approaching him, so he asked God for his help. And when he asked God, it seems that he asked God with intensity, another jeep appeared. In all this hour, no one vehicle appeared there. But at that moment, another vehicle came and stopped by his side, and he said, jump in. And he, of course, he went into the jeep, and the jeep took him without him saying a word, not only to the exact town where he had to go, but to the exact house where he was supposed to stay. When he got off the jeep, he said to the driver, can I give you something? He wanted to give some money to him. He said, no, I don't need anything. He didn't want to accept any money. So he said, well, at least tell me your name. And the person said, call me your midnight friend. And he left. Many years later, he was already an attendee doctor, how you say in the United States. And he saw in a bookstore a book with a photograph of the driver of the jeep, was none other than Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And of course, he became a Sai devotee. The Japamala is another experience they wanted me to share, Martin. So we will not have to be reborn just to share these experiences between ourselves. One day, I was in an interview with Swami, with a group of Argentinians, and one lady, Swami made a Japamala for her, and it was broken. So she stood up and she said to Swami, Swami, can you repair it? And the Japamala was very long. You know, those that Swami made with the silver string and those crystal beds. And, well, it was very long. From her hand, the other part touched the floor. And Swami stood up, took it, and he made like this. And the Japamala went like in slow motion, and the other end touched Swami's finger. If you do like this, perhaps the Japamala will go this place, that place, to your head. But this went in slow motion to Swami's hand. And we reached Swami's hand, it was repaired. The metal string was, I don't know, how do you call it? Repaired, melted and repaired, and gave it back to her. It was an incredible experience. May I have time to share one more? Can I? Okay. Martin says yes. One time I was going to India, and Swami is choosing the stories because they come to my mind, and Jim gives me permission, so I will share this. You know, Swami gave me this new work where I represent American film companies in Latin America, in the south of Latin America, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Sony, Paramount, for children characters, Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, Batman, Superman. And one day I used to visit a company very often to sell them the license to use these characters. This was a confectionery company, very famous in Argentina, very big. Now it has been bought by Cadbury. I think you know Cadbury, the confectionery company in the United States. Well, I used to meet with the president of the company, and after a couple of years, we got very friendly. And he asked me why I went to India, and told him about Swami. And he was not in a spiritual path, but he was very respectful about my beliefs. One day, one of her daughters called me. Two of her daughters were working with him. She called me and she said, Leonardo, when is your next trip to India? And I replied, next April. And he asked me, can I go with you? I said, of course you can. The next day, her sister called me. And she said, I heard that my sister is going with you to India. Can I join? I said, of course you can. So April came, but before that, the next day that this second sister called me, her son, who was 14 years old, woke up in the morning. I went to see her, and he said, Ma, in the middle of the night, a person appeared in my room. And I was going to scream, but he said not to scream. He was not going to harm me. He was there for my good. And I don't know why I couldn't scream, but he was like blessing me, and he was dressed in an orange robe with a African halo hair. He never saw a picture of Swami. Swami was not so known in Argentina at that time. So now in Argentina, 80% of the Argentinian people, if you say Sai Baba, they know who Sai Baba is. They are not all Sai devotees, but they know the name. Swami is very well known in Argentina. We made many, many public meetings all over. Even if there was a soap opera, one of the characters will portray as a Sai Baba devotee. But anyway, Swami appeared in the room of that boy and then vanished. The mother called me and she told me, listen, Leonardo, yesterday I told you that I was going to India, and in the night Swami appeared in the room of my son. This is a very good sign. I said, of course. So April came and we went to India. And I told them how Swami was in Kodaikanal. And we went to Kodaikanal. And I told them that Swami, when he gives darshan, sometimes he makes vibhuti. First day, nothing. Second day, nothing. Third day, nothing. In the evening, they came to my room and they said, Leonardo, you cheated us. It was not true. Swami doesn't make anything. Why made you tell us this lie? Why made you us come? I said, wait, be patient. Next day, Swami called us for an interview. And I said, my God, that's it. Because always in the interview, he makes vibhuti, at least for the ladies. First interview in the history of the Purna Avatar Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, he didn't materialize anything at all. Within myself, I was praying, please, Swami, do something, nothing. But suddenly he looked at one of the two sisters, and he told her, you want to have a child, right? And she said, yes, I will help you. And then he turned to the other one and he put his hand over her head and he said, I will help you also. I didn't know what was happening. The good thing is that in the night, they didn't come to my room to complain. Next day, darshan, Swami came by their side. He stopped in front of them, made vibhuti for them. And both of them told me something that I've never seen. They saw like a cloud of stars below Swami's hand. They saw these stars floating below his hand, and then he made the vibhuti and gave it to them. Then he moved away, but he returned, waved again his hand, and made the locket, well, the medallion for the son of the second sister. Darshan was over. Next day was the last day of their stay there. They were returning to Argentina. Swami came for darshan, and he was standing in front of them. They were standing in a second or third row. He waved his hand, and he made a plum and throw it to them, and told them to eat it. What happened? The first lady couldn't have babies. She was from a very rich family. She made treatments not only in Argentina, but in the United States. And they told her that she couldn't have babies. Now she has 2 boys. The second sister went to India because she had a neurological problem. Since she was 9 years old, she was taking medicines every day. Since Swami put his hand over her head, she never again took medicines. She was completely cured. Not only that, they went one day, they are famous in Argentina, they were invited to a TV program, and they spoke about their experiences with Swami in one of the most important TV shows in Argentina at prime time, in one of the most important TV stations of Argentina. So this is Swami who spreads his message like that. Well, I have so many more stories to share with you. One more or I stop? One more? The last one. If not, I will continue like this.
Up to Jean and Daniela.
Okay, the last one. You know, one day, Swami was going to speak at the end of the World Conference, and we're all sitting in front, and suddenly he was looking to all of us, and he called Dr. Goldstein, and he said something to him. So Dr. Goldstein came and called me, and he said, Swami is calling you. So I went to him, and Swami said, you speak. I will not speak today, I will speak tomorrow. He caught me by surprise. You know, sometimes, usually they give you an advance, 1 day advance. But I said, what I'm going to speak? And Swami said, speak about your experiences. So I started to speak and I couldn't stop. That was my mistake. You know, with Swami, you have to speak, but not too much. But anyway, I couldn't stop. It's happening to me now. So I will share with you one more, and that's it. Then if you have some questions, I will be more than happy to answer to the questions. You know, before starting in the Raja Yoga organization, I was very interested in the UFO, if there was life anywhere else in the universe. So I always thought about asking Swami, but never came to my mind. And I saw a film, The Order of the Divinity, where Kasturi, speaking as if he was Swami, says that there is no life in the universe like life on earth. So I was very surprised, because I said, how could it be? So I was in an interview with Swami. Swami finished the interview and took the bag with vibhuti to distribute vibhuti. And I don't know how, I kneel and I said, Swami, Swami. You know, when Swami finishes, you cannot tell him, sit down, I want more. That's it. But I kneel and said, Swami, Swami. And he looked at me and said, what? And I said, I have a question. And he said, what? And I said, Swami, there is a film, The Order of the Divinity, where Kasturi speaks as if it was you. And I told him all this story. I was surprised at myself how I was able to speak all that in front of Swami. But at that time, Swami got hold of my shoulder, very, very tight, and he was like, I don't know, this distance from my head, 10 inches or less from my head, looking straight into my eyes. And patiently, he was listening to all what I was saying. And when I finished, he said, no, no, it's not like that. And he started to speak, but his eyes were so intense, so much light I saw in his eyes, that suddenly I was lost in his eyes. And I lost all consciousness, and I didn't hear anything. And a little later, I came back, and I started to hear again. And then again, I was lost in his eyes and stopped hearing. And then came back again. But one of the things I remember he said, the whole universe is filled with life. There's no an atom in the universe without life. There is life even in the sun, but you cannot understand that form of life. And then what happened was that in one moment I thought how lucky I am that he's holding so tight my shoulder. And in that moment, he stopped looking into my eyes. He looked at his hand on my shoulder and then back to my eyes, letting me know that he knew all what I was thinking all the time. So yes, Swami knows everything because he's us. He's not only in our hearts. We are him. We are he. He is us. The reality of our being is not this mind with this belief of this individual personality. This is a mirage. That is why he's everywhere all the time. He's all that it is. So brothers and sisters, I hope that all of you will experience him each day more, that we will really live his message, because he has given us the way to wake up, is to apply his message in every aspect of our life. Spirituality is not the sum of rituals and dogmas. It's not when we meditate or when we go to the Sai Center or when we do service. Spirituality is how we are in every moment of our lives, how we behave. If we are each day more good, if we help more people, if we don't harm anyone, if we don't feel angry, if we smile, if we are not afraid, this is a real spiritual life. So I hope, I'm sure, you all will become excellent channels of his divine love, and he will shine through you. Jai Sai Ram.